Hi, welcome to Theory, Culture and Society Abstracts. The paper which I have produced for the journal is on Zygmunt Bauman, the consumption of ethics by the ethics of consumerism. The interest for me personally is Bauman's work on globalization and how he links that to a neoliberal politics and the choices that have been made deliberately, which allows him to see globalization obviously as something reversible. I also was interested in his work on The Art of Life, 2008 text, in which he talks about the ethical side of globalization. And a secondary interest, which is in the paper, is Bauman's notion of critique. What does it mean for him as a writer, neither totally at home in the critical theory camp, but certainly critical in many respects, although he borrows as well from the post-structuralists. The paper then starts off with tracing Bauman's ideas of modernity as he shifts from his solid to his liquid conception of it. I look also at his critique, as I said earlier, in terms of liberation sociology, and in particular then focus down on his work on the society of consumers and the very individualized, narcissistic even, forms of identity he sees people as having today. I then look at three criticisms. One is his appropriation of creative destruction, a concept of Joseph Schumpeter's, which is in use in a lot of places nowadays and not always totally understood. And I think Bauman is guilty of this. For him, he thinks there is a Levinasian face-to-face ethics that can save the day. However, if we are true to Schumpeter's concept, we'll know that that, as the alternative, has been destroyed in the production of the Nietzschean account of subjectivity, which Bauman sees as dominating the world today. The second criticism then is a rather totalizing bent of Bauman's work, perhaps inevitable for someone who writes so majestically, who skirts across a lot of fields, very, very well read. But the downside is really he overlooks a lot of ethical forms of decision-making, moral dilemmas that confront us in everyday consumption, as indeed writers like Daniel Miller do point out, and I use Miller precisely for that purpose. The third criticism is of Bauman's concept of autonomy. Can we get there? If so, what does it look like? He seems to indicate some sort of pristine form of autonomy where there are free choices independently of any form of consumption, and here consumption is almost like a technique of power. It also raises the question of where Bauman speaks from, as the purveyor of someone who claimed the legislative mode of critique is finished. Bauman seems to have a position very much outside of consumption to be able to get an account of the fact that we can escape it and stand outside of it. The paper then concludes with a celebration of Bauman. After all, he is a great thinker, very stimulating. We can't work without him today in many respects. And I try and introduce a Foucauldian account of ethics to try and temper what he has suggested, or perhaps go beyond is a better word. I also then terminate by looking at his notion of critique, as I said earlier, as something that certainly sets the task for us if it doesn't actually stand up to the challenge of how to live in a society of consumers. I hope you enjoy it. Look forward to comment, critique, and dialogue. Thank you.